Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Hello, yes, my name is Aaron Poochigian. I am a poet, and I am calling from New York City, the East Village of Manhattan.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about, well, extensively about your past leading up into your present?
Yes, I'm here today because I wrote a book called Four Walks in Central Park, which is poetry and an immersive tour in Central Park in four walks. I'm also here because the process of writing that book helped me kick a cocaine addiction that I fell into during COVID lockdown.
Okay, and tell me, how did it begin? How did you get introduced to cocaine?
I had tried it recreationally when I was younger, and I always said to myself, oh, it's good you don't have access to this drug because if you did, you'd get addicted to it. It solved all my problems. And so during COVID lockdown, I had nothing to look forward to. Our days, I mean, we could go out for walks, but there were no events, there were no social engagements inside. And so I had nothing to look forward to. I needed something to look forward to. And so when I reached out to a dealer, it was just for a distraction, something to get me out of the tedium of lockdown. As
Do
I had
you feel like it was a waste of time now that you are in your position that you're in, that all the recreational drug use has wasted your time when you were in active drug addiction?
I do in retrospect. The excitement. It's like cocaine is like artificial excitement with nothing behind it. Eventually, yes, doing cocaine turned out to be hollow. And I so isolated myself because I didn't want my friends or family to see what became of me, that yes, I no longer had any new input, any new experiences. And so cocaine left me ultimately barren with nothing to think about, nothing new to do. And so when I dried up creatively and had no more friends and rarely talked to my family, I reached rock bottom and decided then, it was conscious, that I would use a variety of meditation practices to bring me back to an engagement with the world. And
What was your meditation practices?
I tried a bunch of them, including transcendental meditation,
What
but
is
my
that?
that is it's like a Western equivalent of Buddhist meditation in which you seek emptiness in your mind, and anything that fills it is a distraction. My mind is way too spastic, I'm afraid, for transcendental meditation, and so I settled on a kind called Shinrin Yoku in Japanese. That means forest bathing, going to the wilderness and intentionally itemizing each of the sensory experiences you have. And that worked much better for me in that I needed new input. And also, it gave my mind things to focus on. And
Take
so
me down the first day you started that journey.
I will. I walked up to Central Park. Subsequently, I took the bus. It was hard to take the bus during COVID. I walked up to Central Park and I tried to practice Shinrin Yoku. In the beginning, I was very bad at it. I couldn't sustain concentration on meditation on what was in the park for longer than 30, 35 seconds. But eventually, I was able to extend my immersion in the park to as much as 10, 15 minutes. And eventually, I also allowed myself to write down my impressions in a diary. And that's what eventually grew into the book project that's Four Walks in Central Park.
Okay. Okay. So that type of meditation. So how, take me down a journey where, or take me down a path where you saw that you were getting better at this meditation, this Japanese meditation. You said to yourself, and you just became from beginner to like expert.
Yes, I became an amateur naturalist. Excuse me, identifying species of trees and species of birds in the park. I became an amateur birder. And so I recall in particular, I mean, I immersed myself in the wilderness environments, but I remember one day I was on a section of the park called Cherry Hill, which has Yoshino cherry trees. And in March and April, going into May, they have the beautiful pink blossoms, and the blossoms smell like almonds taste. And because I had eventually at that time curtailed my cocaine use, I was able to smell the scent of the cherry blossoms. I had been using so much cocaine that I had a permanent sinus infection. I basically didn't breathe through my nose for a year and a half. But then after I curtailed the usage and smelled the almond scent of the blossoms, I realized I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to having my senses plugged as my nose was plugged. And so that was sort of a moment that turned everything around for me there on Cherry Hill.
Tell me about the depressive symptoms that you experienced so that people that are on cocaine or are seeking help from cocaine would, create a better, have a choice to either continue cocaine or stop cocaine at all costs. What kind of advice would you give someone out there to change? Because tell them the cons of what will happen for their future if they continue down that path as a man using cocaine.
Yes. A specialist in addiction, whom I respect very much, Johann Hari, says that the opposite of addiction is connection. That addicts more slowly become more and more isolated from their former friends and from their family. I mean, you use it at first as a stimulant. You can use it to party. You can use it as a sort of performance enhancing drug, as I did as a writer, right? But eventually you end up being disconnected. There's a famous study done in the 70s in which rats were put into a container with water, with real normal water, and then with water laced with cocaine. And the rats in that empty cage would go and hit the cocaine water over and over again until eventually they died. But more recently, there was a study in which rats were put into a rat paradise with all kinds of games to play. And then they were given the pure water and the water with the cocaine, and they showed far less interest in the cocaine water when they had things to do that were fun and distracting, and when they had other rats there to be their friends. And so that sort of goes to show that, yes, the opposite of addiction is connection. And so I was left so empty, so drained, and with so little new input from cocaine that I dried up terribly and was disconnected. Also, just as a general message, when I was depressed while I was on cocaine, despite the stimulation of it. But I felt that my misery defined me. It was what made me special. God had singled me out to suffer. I was quite a drama queen. And so I want to spread this message, right? To people who feel that their depressive state and their problems define them, make them unique, right? Don't let negative states of mind own you. Don't take pride in them. Don't be arrogant in them, but go out and engage with the world and engage with other people who have problems similar to yours. And you will learn that you're not unique, right? That your problems followed a very well-established pattern. And so, yes, I want to encourage people, yes, who are feeling addicted to get out and engage with the world again and to call up their friends again.
Tell me about the connection between your book and your life, but tell me more so about your book. That's what, and what it meant to you, and take me down that day you started the chapter of building your book.
Yeah, the book is an immersive tour in 4 walks of Central Park. And it plots, in a way, my re-engagement with the world. As I said, I'd been isolated. There are 2 characters. There's the speaker, who is an authority on Central Park. He knows everything about it. He's a know-it-all. He knows all the tree species and the bird species, and he is your docent or tour guide. And then the other character in the book is addressed as you. And this is someone who is disconnected from the world, who is overworked and melancholy, who's depressed. And then the leader, the guide, takes the you through on tours through the park, but it's also a tour back into appreciating the world again. And both of those characters are aspects of me, right? The know-it-all tour guide knows more about the park than I do. He knows offhand things that I have to look up. But in a way, I'm also the you who is being led, who is being guided through the park. And so the book kind of plots my recovery from isolation and kind of from a kind of obtuseness, not appreciating what's in the world, back into enjoying being alive again, enjoying what's coming in through my 5 senses again.
Do you feel like, I think you said Central Park is is like a hub for people that want to come, that does the right things to recover in their life trials and tribulations? Because think about all those books that have been written about this one part, you are a part of that now, so how do you feel about that?
Wow. Yes. How do I feel about exactly? I'm sorry. I want to get the right answer to the question. How do I feel about Central Park now that I've
being
read the book?
being a part of an experience with, you're an author who's written and did a metaphor about Central Park and spirituality. There's a lot of people that have written books about Central Park and spirituality, and or just Central Park and recovery.
Hmm.
What about Central Park has brought people, you brought distant people together in a connection? So how do you feel about that?
If the book helps people, then I would be the happiest person in the world. The book's set up to be a tour guide, and so you can actually use it when you're there in the park, but it's also set up to be a substitute or a surrogate for going through the park. And if people use it that way to train themselves to re-engage with the world, I would be the happiest person in the world. And so in a sense, yeah, the book is training for appreciation of the world. And then also what I think the new thing that my book has to offer to adults is childlike play for adults. A major theme in the book is childhood joy. And the park itself has many attractions for children, like the carousel and the zoo and the Alice in Wonderland statue you can climb all over, and the Hans Christian Andersen statue you can climb all over. And so
How big is it?
the book? Oh, sorry. How
Oh,
big is the park? It is
yeah.
a little over a half-mile wide, and then it runs for roughly 50 blocks, from 59th
Whoa.
Street all the way up to 110th Street. And so, yes, it's not our nation's largest park, but it is, in a sense, our national park. There are famous parks in the old world, like in France, there's Versailles, the former garden of Louis the Sun King. But we have our democratic American park that anyone can go to for free. And I think it means even more for New Yorkers. I mean, some of the stereotypes about New Yorkers are true in that they are more stressed out, and related to that, they're more pushy, and their lives are, and the life outside of the park on the concrete grid is very stressful. And so the concentrated recreation that the park gives is especially relevant in New York City, where most people are crazy busy. and they
Ha-
need that escape.
Have you walked all over the park of 50 blocks? And if you haven't, do your map or navigation tool that you have done, has that been a part of your book?
Yes, I certainly spent a great deal of time in the park. I won't say I've been everywhere, but I explored and have written about lesser known attractions. And I guess I'll say in the beginning, the park was a new friend to me when I needed one. When I needed a connection, I had that new friend. Now, after years of going to the park regularly, it's an old friend. I rarely discover new things now, but I'm still learning to identify the rarer species of trees and rarer species of birds. But it's become an old, reliable friend. I know its moods, for example, but I think it's infinite. I think one can keep on learning about that park forever. It's concentrated nature, a concentrated wilderness. It's densely packed with all kinds of landscapes: wilderness, lake landscapes, grassland landscapes, mountain landscapes, and then there are the various buildings and attractions there as well. So I think it's infinite. But yes, as I said, it's become an old friend, and I'm learning things about it more slowly now.
How and when was it built?
All right. And so there was a design in New York City, in Manhattan, we'll say, in the late 1840s and 1850s. There was a need was felt for a recreation ground. Most of Manhattan was built up towards the southern end, and there was
Was this
still.
during dirt road? Was this during when they had dirt roads and not pavement roads?
Yes, it was. There were mostly dirt roads and cobblestone roads. And there was, not yet even gas lighting in the evening, let alone electric lighting. And so a design contest was held by New York City, for the design of a large urban park. And a gentleman named Frederick Olmsted won that design competition. And the city then, most of the land that was used for Central Park,
Was
um,
nature, right?
most of the
Yeah.
land that was used for Central Park was rocky or swampy. And so in the construction of the park, a lot of dynamite was used to blast out rock in order to make what would eventually be flat meadows. And a lot of pumps were used to drain the water from the swamps in order then to reveal the landscape so that it could be shaped by dynamite and other means. And so slowly then more and more attractions grew in the park. In the 1850s, the first to open was the lake, where you could rent rowboats. And then slowly other attractions were built up, such as the carousel and the zoo later on in the 1880s and 1890s. And since then, slowly, every once in a while, the attractions will be rehabilitated and rebuilt. Like the zoo has gone through 3 versions, and the carousel for children has gone through 4 versions since the park first opened in the 1850s.
Even though they blew up things with explosives, tell me about what they did. Like, did they move around the structure? Like, did the woods, such as the trees, stay the same and they just took certain infrastructure out? So, because now they build around that park, right?
Yeah.
Just to
Yes.
keep it, safe.
Yes. Most of the park, to answer your question, is artificial. There are a few rock formations that is planted by humans, not plastic, artificial. Sorry, artificial in that it's made by humans. It's not nature. A lot of people, and I write about this in the book. A lot of people think and talk about Central Park as nature with a capital N, right? But it is very much human made. There are a few rock formations like Summit Rock, and Vista Rock that were our original landscape elements, but the rest of it is human made. The trees are planted, and the variety of bird species, some of them were brought in and introduced to the park. And so, yes, as much as the park works like nature and has all the virtues of nature, it's rather human made, and it's something I would call nature concentrate, and that you have so much diversity of landscape and of species within a limited space. And so, yes, not nature, not wilderness, but it does all the same things. The park does all the same things that nature and wilderness do.
So they have like exotic wildlife animals there too, right?
Yes, bird species mostly. The other animals that hang out in there are squirrels, there are chipmunks, there are opossums and raccoons, and every once in a while, a coyote or wolf is spotted in the park. But mostly the diversity of species is in the trees and the birds.
What kind of, since you study species, what kind of species have you actually encountered that has been exotic? And tell me how you studied them, the
Yes.
birds.
And so at first I could only recognize the normal, the most common sorts of birds like chickadees and robins and crows and grackles. But eventually I came to be able to recognize by sight and also by sound rarer birds in the park, such as whippoorwills. The males make a very distinctive whistling mating call that they repeat over and over again, and I can recognize that. And also I can recognize lots of the bright red birds, like the scarlet tanager, which is rare, and then also the red cardinal. I've come to be able to recognize, lesser known species such as that, such as those. And it's the same with the trees. There are the common trees in New York City, such as elm trees and London planes. But I now recognize some of the rarer species like sassafras and sycamores, and yes, other such trees.
Tell me about the state bird and the state tree.
Oh, forgive my embarrassment. I do not know for New York City the state bird and the state tree. Forgive my ignorance. No.
No. That's okay. So even though you don't know a state
Yeah,
bird or a state tree,
yeah.
tell me about how a tree that has been on that you have studied that has been like what 200 to 300 years old, because obviously they got like trees out there like that, right? Or
Yeah.
no?
There, most of the trees were planted in the 1850s, and so a lot of them, yes, are what now? My goodness, 175 years old. So you're right, almost pushing 200 years. Yes, I'm particularly attracted to the trees in this meditative cove on the lake called Wagner Cove.
Mhm.
In particular, I'm attracted to the beech trees because they have this smooth, gray, seamless bark. And I wanted, when I was meditating in the park, to use all my senses. And so it has a slightly smoky smell if you smell the bark. But more importantly, I wanted to get the sense of touch involved in my meditation. And so beech trees are great because they have this smooth gray bark. It just feels so good to touch. River birch trees also show up in Wagner Cove, and they're cool because they have bark. It's like like old player pianos when you feed them that paper that has the hole in it. Their bark is like player piano music that you put into a player piano, and it's peeling. You don't want to peel it because you'll damage the bark. But it has, in contrast to the beech tree, a rough peeling texture that is also good to feel. I would lean my back up against the bark and then look out over the lake, say in Wagner Cove, and meditate. And slowly, as I said, I became more familiar with the trees in that area, even the rarer ones. But I'm still Yes, an aspiring naturalist. I'm not an expert.
Well said. Why did you choose? Why did the people or the government or whoever chose to plant the trees choose those trees? And where do you see yourself going in the future?
Oh, got it. And so Frederick Olmsted, the landscape architect who designed Central Park, was in addition to being a visionary, he was a very practical man. And so he was prudent when it came to choosing trees, and that he had to choose trees that could survive and thrive in our lands, at our latitude and longitude. And so more exotic trees. I was just in Houston visiting my sister, and appreciating like massive live oak trees and Spanish moss and all the southern sorts of trees. And though I love them, they would not survive up here. And so we don't have, for example, live oaks that need a warmer, humid temperature. They had to be hearty trees that could survive the winter. And there are a number of attractions in the park that focus exclusively on evergreens, hardy evergreens, fir trees that keep their needles throughout the year. But they are balanced by other hardy trees from around the world. My favorite exotic tree is Chinese scholar tree. Pretty rare in the park. But it's, yes, commonly used in Buddhist shrines. And so I see those Chinese scholar trees as reinforcing the sort of meditative aspect of the park.
Do you know how many trees there are in the world or in the United States?
Oh my God, I wish I did. Oh my God, millions, millions upon millions. Um,
And where do you see yourself going in the future?
ah, yes, I have just finished a bunch of projects. The book, yeah, The Four Walks in Central Park came out. I also translate. I have a translation of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius's Meditations coming out. But yes, I'm gearing up for my next big project. I mean, as a poet, I put out collections of poems as well as themed books like Four Walks in Central Park. And so I'm working on that. And I'm also working on an opera libretto that I hope to publish about the poet Sylvia Plath. And so, yes, I'm always busy. I try always to stay busy. And so next for me will be putting out a book of poems and then publishing that opera libretto.
Okay, and how can the people reach you?
Oh, got it. Yes, you can find me on Twitter at my last name. And then also you can find me on Facebook under my name. I'm the only Aaron Poochigian in the world. And so everything you find having to do with my name has to do with me.
Okay, stay on the line. Thank you, everybody, for joining my show today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.